This is Unveil. Real cases. AI analysis. The patterns hiding in plain sight. Are you seeing what we are seeing? Subscribe if you see it too.
We start with a fact so jarring, it should fundamentally disorient how you view modern geopolitics. Picture a quiet, snowbound village just outside Paris. The year is 1978. Neufville-le-Château didn't just happen to host an exiled cleric. It served as the deliberate, methodical launch point of the Islamic Republic. This figure was operating under the direct official protection of the French state. So, make no mistake, this wasn't a geopolitical accident, it was a method.
And the state knew perfectly well what they were doing, because French intelligence was screaming at them to stop. Alexander de Miranches, the head of France's external intelligence agency, looked straight at Ayatollah Khomeini and warned he was a firebrand, whose very function was to set fire to everything. Domestic intelligence was begging for immediate expulsion to Algeria. They saw the incoming threat clearly. But the president? Valéry Giscard d'Estaing overruled them on. He personally bypassed his own spies, handed Khomeini state-level protection, and did it for one purely economic motive, locking down billion-franc commercial contracts. We're talking massive Airbus deals and the Tehran metro.
When you pull the classified files, a highly deliberate structural blueprint comes into focus. We call it the theological slot. Think of it as a four-step mechanism. Step 1, locate a theological or eschatological gap in a Shia-adjacent community. Step 2, surgically insert a French-backed human figure into that exact gap. Step 3, manufacture a proxy whose leadership becomes totally untouchable because striking the man is now perceived as striking the divine. And Step 4, watch as a fanatical enforcement layer naturally forms around this theology to protect it.
This is not a one-off geopolitical glitch. When we map a century of covert French state operations, the case file reveals a terrifyingly clear pattern. One playbook, three separate deployments. It starts way back in the 1920s with the Murshidiyya, it repeats in 1978 with Khomeini, and it culminates in the Hezbollah entanglement operating today. France ran the exact same operation, 3 times.
Let's look at deployment 1. We're in the French Mandate during the 1920s. France deliberately renames the Nusayri sect to Alawites and carves out the state of Jabba Alawite. French military intelligence found an expectation in local doctrine for an 8th divine manifestation. So what do? They take a man named Suleiman el-Murshid, tie him directly to French military intel, and insert him into that 8th manifestation slot. He essentially becomes a human god to his followers. The result was the creation of an assassin-class loyalist force known as the Fidayeen. That French-built Alawite military officer corps, it later formed the absolute nucleus of the Syrian army.
Now, move to deployment 2. Same structural logic. France exploits a massive gap in Twelver Shia thought called Wilayat al-Faqih, a doctrine allowing a senior jurist to act as the living stand-in for the hidden imam. Khomeini was inserted directly into that slot. Sitting safely in France, he ran global media and organizational operations for millions. The result this time? The fanatic enforcement layer that sprouted up became the IRGC and the Basij, a proxy enforcement mechanism operating at a nation-state scale. But it's this third deployment, the Hezbollah entanglement running today, that arrived with a devastating price tag.
$60 million. Here is where the trap accelerates into the commercial layers. Between 1995 and 2004, the French oil giant Total paid roughly $60 million in bribes to Iranian officials just to secure oil rights in the Surrey and South Pars fields, a move that triggered massive U.S. Department of Justice penalties. Commercial interests were already dictating covert complicity.
And the receipts just rapidly stack up from there, shifting from millions to billions. We're talking a 19 billion euro contract for Airbus. Then we hit the CMA-CGM deal, where the French shipping giant secures the Beirut container terminal. This wasn't standard business. It was allegedly brokered through direct Hezbollah facilitation following a private meeting, throwing in the offer of a private plane to a Hezbollah-aligned transport minister. These aren't just contracts. They're the financial glue binding a massive geopolitical trap.
We have to rip open the foundational transaction, the Marchionni Channel. Between 1986 and 1988, France used a shadow operative named Jean-Charles Marchionni to negotiate directly with Hezbollah through Tehran. The French state was literally funneling hostage payments to Hezbollah via Iran. As part of this deal, France pledged the early release of Iranian assassins sitting in Paris jails. Marchionni was convicted in 2007, but quickly amnestied by the president. The defense minister even pressured the judge to drop the charges. To this day, the full Marchionni files remain buried, completely sealed under secret defense.
This exposes a total contradiction at the core of the state. On the surface, they project a fierce public policy of counterterrorism. Beneath it, deep covert complicity. In 2016, a joint Europol DEA operation was about to announce the arrest of 15 Hezbollah-linked individuals running a massive cocaine money laundering network. France deliberately canceled the press conference. Why bury a major counterterrorism win? Because Iranian President Rouhani was visiting Paris that exact week to finalize that €19 billion Airbus deal. Law enforcement was actively suppressed to protect the commercial layer.
And this complicity poisons international law. To fully designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, the European Union requires unanimous consent from all 27 members. France acts as the primary systemic obstacle. By constantly flexing its veto power, France provides a legal shield, functionally protecting Hezbollah's financial networks across the entire continent.
The recent proof of this entanglement is undeniable, and it's actively escalating. In 2020, President Macron held a private meeting in Beirut with Mohammed Raad, a U.S.-sanctioned head of Hezbollah's parliamentary bloc. Fast forward to the 2026 Iran war. France actively obstructed operations against Iran by denying its airspace to Israeli military cargo. They even forced a massive detour on a United States Air Force B-1B bomber returning from strikes. France wasn't being a neutral mediator. It was deploying its airspace as a protective barrier for the Islamic Republic.
Which brings us to the lock holding this whole system together: mutual incrimination at the scale of a state. This relationship isn't held together by trust or shared values. It is bound by shared classified receipts. Neither side can expose the other without completely destroying themselves. France is simply not free to act. They cannot afford for the Iranian regime or Hezbollah to collapse, because if they do, the archives open. France is literally held hostage by its own criminal classified record.
But there is a single point of failure in this architecture: the Marchiani files. Sealed tight under France's highest national security classification, even Marchiani himself begged for them to be declassified to get a fair trial, and he was shut down. What exactly is sitting in those ledgers? Who authorized the payments? Declassify those files, and the entire complicity architecture either stands exposed to the light of day or it utterly collapses.
We look at this official record with chilling objectivity. Convergence is not proof. Benefit is not guilt. But 8 documented layers of intelligence, commercial, and operational complicity is not nothing. From a snowbound village in 1978 to blocked airspace in 2026, the record forces a confrontation with the evidence. It poses a dark structural question that a democracy is supposed to answer.
If you like our investigations, please do subscribe and hit the like button. This motivates us to do more. We unveil so you see.